Identified armed men have carried out a massacre in the Chenchire community of the Bole District in the Savannah Region, indiscriminately killing 6 people and injuring 2 others in the latest tribal attacks. This brings the death toll in the Solatuna, Kalba and Bole District to 17, with the number of displaced persons continuing to rise. The conflict rages on despite appeals for calm and restraint. We'll bring you details of the police statement shortly, but first, let's hear from the DC for Solatuna, Kalba, Saka Sinkina, who revealed that 8 displaced persons fleeing the conflict drowned in the white water.
About 8 people were drowned. You know, if you look at the Bole, Bamboy and Solatuna, Kalba, we share boundary with the Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso to the western part of our district. And these inhabitants, some are more or less related to people in Burkina Faso and La Côte d'Ivoire. So as a result of the conflict, most of them are migrating to Côte d'Ivoire. And they pass a lot of unapproved routes with some locally manufactured boats, or what they call the canoes. It was one of those incidents that some 2 families were trying to cross and they drowned. No rescues have been made. I'm told 8 people were on board the boat and they've all drowned.
And how about those who were killed?
Yes, those who were killed have been sent to a hospital at Kapinta. That is the southern part of Bole Bamboy district.
And how many are they?
I was told by the Bole MC there are 6.
So this brings the official death toll to 16, correct?
I believe more than 16. In my district here, Solatuna, Kalba, we had 5 first, 2, that makes it 7, 3 from Bole, Bamboy, and now 11, roughly about 17. About 17 is my figure, official, 17.
Well, this afternoon, government is set to revoke LI 2462 to prohibit mining in forest reserves as Acting Minister for Science, Environment and Technology, Emmanuel Amakofibua, has officially written to the Office of the Attorney General to take immediate action to have both LI 2462 and its amended version LI 2501 revoked. This was contained in a statement released by the Ministry of Environment, Science and Innovation, and we'll bring you details of that particular statement here on the show for you. Let me try and bring that to you. Now it says, the Acting Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, Honorable Emmanuel Amakofibua, has formally written to the Office of the Attorney General for the immediate revocation of legislative instrument LI 2462 and its amended version LI 2501. This decisive legal action is designed to unify and strengthen the regulatory framework, creating a cohesive front for all stakeholders in the national fight against illegal mining, known as Galamsey. The move aims to end the severe environmental devastation that has polluted Ghana's water bodies and degraded its forest reserves. Now, in the letter, the minister expressed confidence that the existing regulatory regime under the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, provides robust and sufficient guidelines to oversee all mining activities. This consolidated framework will ensure strict compliance with environmental and social standards, guaranteeing responsible mining practices across the sector. And that's a release from the ministry there. Let's bring in the convener for the citizen movement against Galamsey, and he's joining us now. Dr. Kenneth Ashibe, I'm grateful to you for joining us here. Now, this should be good news for you because this is what you've been calling for, a total revocation of LI 2462.
Well, this is something that the coalition and all of us have been asking for. In our engagement with the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, he's always indicated that, well, this was in the purview of the Minister for Environment. Unfortunately, as the death of the minister is, at least the minister has shown that he's true to his word. And, the interesting thing to note is that there has been large-scale mining in these forest reserves when we had the guidelines in place. And we did not see this level of desecration of our forests.
Okay.
So the likes of the bauxite mines, Chirano has been in the Anglo was in Achim area. If you take the Anglo example, they impacted about 110 hectares, but they are reclaiming about 317. That's the level of responsibility you want to see. not what we saw, where some people coming into force of this particular LI, which has a lot of illegality. It was, again, it's from the environment. It was not based on the LI is a subsidiary legislation. It was not based on any primary legislation. So, ab initio, it was illegal. In the guidelines, we were doing only 2%. This one had opened the door. In the guidelines, the ministry, the Forestry Commission was the first place you would go to get clearance before you go to everybody else. This one had turned it upside down. It was just a bad law. So it's good that it's going to be revoked and its amendments and all of it. And then we will put in the measures to ensure that there's responsibility. The interesting thing we're beginning to see is that even because of all the illegalities that is happening, you are beginning to see farmers now claim that they don't even have land and they are threatening to go into some of these forest reserves. So I think we need to commend the Minister for Lands who is acting in the environment. And then we need to call on the Attorney General to quickly help, get this thing done. It's very important that it is done as quickly as possible.
So your expectation is that the Attorney General will work on this quickly. But what kind of measures can we put in place so that we don't get back to where we were, where an LI could then permit mining in a forest reserve, or to make the fight against galamsey quite difficult?
Well, I think what we need to do is to look at the guidelines itself. It was a good framework. The initial idea was just to take that guidelines and put it into law. And so that's what we should do. In the revision of the act that is taking place, we could put that in. But you see, again, Ghana, our problem is not even the issues of law. Our problem is the issues of how we actually implement the things that we have on the table. And for me, one of the challenges that I'm beginning to face is that it's as if the AIDS that died, we are allowing it to cool off. Apart from this good news that we have had, you then hear the chairman of the NDC talk about the fact that the state of emergency is not necessary. How is that possible? When you have situations where there are people that are still sitting, in chamfants on water bodies, and that all of these illegalities happening, there is so much more that we need to do. And we're waiting. We're hoping that this is just the beginning of the good things that are going to happen for us to stop the criminality that is happening. Which was promised by the Minister for Foreign Affairs, that the president, in the coming days is going to announce something. We're hoping that when he returns from his trip to Japan and Singapore, we will see something. And I'm hoping, the whole psyche of Singapore, where law enforcement is the thing to go, we are going to see a similar thing happen so far as the criminality is concerned, so that we don't have people, out there celebrating that task forces are being called back. But we will deal with any task force that goes rogue, and we will provide also NIMOS, who is still in the field. Now, the NIMOS task force is still in the field. We'll provide them the resources that are required to be able to police the forest reserves, our water bodies, and ensure that the minings that are happening in the towns, are dealt with. There's a situation that we are dealing with currently. You now have also the communities beginning to rise up. So in Yalkrom, somewhere in Asamankase, there are some illegal miners that have gone into some of the places. Destroying the forest of the town folk are pushing back. We're hoping that the police will support these communities so that they would also be able to succeed in preserving their livelihood, their cocoa farms, and all of that.
So you're saying that aside the intention to revoke the LI's 2462, they still have to declare the state of emergency. Is that what you're saying? Oh,
definitely. There's several other things that are required. The state of emergency is so critical because His Excellency the President himself says galamsey is a national emergency. And the response to that would be some of the things that we might have to do that would require a state of emergency. For example, prescribing that you cannot go to any of these water bodies that have been destroyed, apart from some people that might be designated as people who are going to do the cleanup. I know, for example, the EPA has plans to do the cleanup of all of these places. But if they go and do the cleanup and there are people still in there, what would that be? Then also another thing that we would be expecting to happen is for the Minister of Interior to revoke that obnoxious policy he's brought, where when foreigners are arrested, they are allowed to go out of this country. That has to go. The other thing that we are hoping that will happen, the Attorney General has called for the investigation of some, the NDC national organizer and the third vice president. We want to see some action on that. Akwatia mining, we want to see some action on that. Professor Frimpong Boateng, the report is replete with a lot of politically exposed persons who are involved in all of that. We want to see some action. We need to deal with the kingpins, not just arresting some of these young folks that are in the pits and all of that. They are not the people who have money to bring 2,000 excavators into this country. They are not the people. So we need to go after the kingpins as well. So there are some things that we need to do if we really are serious about dealing with this existential crisis that stares us in the face.
You are not a lawyer, but let me ask this. Now that the Minister for Environment, acting, has written to the Attorney General to undertake this revocation, how long do you expect the AG to also act on this to make sure that this particular LI is revoked?
So I think you are spot on that I'm not a lawyer, but we are also students of history. We saw what happened during last year when the NPP had an instrument that they were taking into Parliament to go and revoke that. They did that very quickly. We also saw the NDC themselves, some of their members ready with a private members bill to revoke it. So we are expecting the AG to work as quickly as possible to be able to revoke this piece of legislation. The interesting thing is that the AG himself at the time was the chairperson of the subsidiary legislative committee that saw this particular LI come into force. So I'm sure he sees with all the information that he needs to be able to take a decision for us to see this immediately. Parliament comes back, resumes in October. In the month of October, we should see this laid in Parliament.
Grateful to you, Dr. Ken Ashibe, for joining us here. He is a convener for the Media Coalition Against Galamsey. Now, away from that, the Constitutional Review Committee has reviewed that the final report of its 9-month-long work would be out in 4 weeks. The 8-member committee was commissioned in January 2025 to conduct a nationwide stakeholder engagement to recommend some changes to the 1992 Constitution. One key conversation which has come up strongly, forcing a direct response from President John Dramani Mahama in the last few days, is about whether the current presidential term should be changed from 2 to 3. Speaking on Prime Insight on Joy Prime a while ago, Secretary to the Constitutional Review Committee, Dr. Reina Akuperega, says that some prominent citizens, including some past presidents, made strong argument for the change.
We had experts, we had academia, we have people that have worked and cut their teeth in these areas, CSOs, people that have invested a lot of energy. We have had discussions with people that, by virtue of their close proximity to the Constitution, former ministers. We have had discussions with every living president, President Akufo, President Akufo-Addo. The sitting president himself was our stakeholder as President Mahama, and all of them proffered certain opinions on this subject matter. The concern had to do with the first and the last year. Okay, so the thinking was that the view that the majority expressed was that the first year, the president, having been elected and sworn into office, is putting his cabinet and putting his government together, right? So that was part of it. And that the last year, in our practice, is usually used in organizing election, or the governance of the country is distracted by the political activity and then the heat of politics in the last year. All of that.
For the sake of time, you mean to tell us that all 3 ex-presidents are clear that, and there's some sort of consensus even beyond that, that the presidential term limit may not be enough. There's a need to do something about it. Not just... Yeah.
Yes, it certainly came up. It certainly came up, not all the ex-presidents, not all the presidents, but it certainly came up. I don't want to mention names, but Of course, the report will include all of that, but it certainly came up among the presidents, among eminent persons, among even consultants who worked in the 1992 Constitution. And so it is one area we are definitely looking at.
Well, President John Mahama has already declared that he will not run for a third term. However, speaking on the same show, member of the Movement for Change, Solomon Owusu, says Ghanaians would not have allowed him to run.
Then when the constitution was so clear, some of us would have chased him out. I mean...
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, they would have chased him out. He has no business contemplating even contesting for the third term. 2 terms are enough for anybody that wants to do serious business with this country. Granted, you are the best president. So when you die, the country will come to a standstill? No way. And so we must. There is a reason why the 1969 Constitution also made it clear that every president must have 2 terms, and this was repeated in the 1992 Constitution. Yes, I thought it was coming from the opposition party, especially the New Patriotic Party. They were pushing the agenda, but I found it very, very interesting, because here was a candidate, here was a president, John Mahama, whom the party, the MPP, said it defeated him in 2012. Remember, the party went to the Supreme Court to challenge his election, that indeed they won. Here was someone that they defeated beautifully in 2016 by a whooping gap of almost 1 million. So if this person had even the intention of contesting for the third term, I thought the opposition would be happy, because you believe there is no more, he is never a match for you. But they were pushing the agenda, but it's good that, though for me it was needless that he has come out, because there was no...
You feel it was needless for the president to say that?
Because the Constitution is so clear.
Well, away from that, the Ghana Journalists Association has slammed as reckless and irresponsible comments by the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Dr. Tinkrachum, after he allegedly threatened journalists planning to visit hospitals in the wake of the Ridge Hospital controversy. Addressing the media, GJA President Albert Kwabena Jumfo issued a 5-day ultimatum to Dr. Chum to retract his remarks and render an unreserved apology, warning that failure to do so will attract consequences.
GJA is outraged by the treacherous and completely unacceptable comments made by Dr. Tinkrachum, in which he boldly declared that journalists had been marked and will be shown whenever they visit public hospitals. As if he owns the hospitals, a blatant threat of violence against journalists in Ghana. The GJA finds these remarks utterly irresponsible, deeply disturbing, and unbefitting of a leader of a professional health association. The GJA serves notice as follows. 1. Dr. Tinkrachum must, within 5 days, retract his reckless comments, issue an unqualified public apology to all journalists in Ghana, and give a clear undertaking that he would never again champion or encourage actions that threaten the safety of journalists in this country. 2. Should he fail to comply, the GJA will not hesitate to petition all appropriate bodies, including but not limited to the National Media Commission, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, International Press Freedom Watchdogs, including the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, the Federation of African Journalists, FAJ, and the International Federation of Journalists.
Meanwhile, the GJA president has also appealed to the government and the Minister of Health to guarantee the safety of journalists assigned to cover public hospitals.
We will hold him personally accountable for any harm that befalls journalists in public hospitals or elsewhere as a result of his utterances. So what it means is that if a journalist visits any hospital, public hospital, and anything happens to him or her, whether due to the negligence of nurses or not, we are going to hold Dr. Chenchire responsible if he fails to do the needful within 5 days. We also call on the leadership of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association to publicly dissociate itself from this comment. Silence on their part will be interpreted as endorsement and complicity. 5, finally, we urge the government of Ghana, the Ministry of Health, and the security agencies to take immediate steps to assure journalists of their safety in hospitals and other public spaces. We wish to remind Dr. Chenchire Chu, wherever he is, and if he's listening and watching me, that Article 162, Clause 1 of the 1992 Constitution guarantees the freedom and independence of the media, while Article 21, Clause 1A guarantees every Ghanaian's right to freedom of speech and expression, including that of the media. His statement amounts to an affront to Ghana's constitutional democracy.
Well, in a related development, Mr. Jumfo expressed concern over the delayed release of the report on the assault of JoyNews reporter Carlos Caloni and his crew, saying it confirms the association's earlier fears about the military's commitment to this investigation and to press freedom. He further argued that the absence of clear timelines from the presidency has worsened the situation.
The National Executive of the GJA would like to remind the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of the Defense Staff of the Ghana Armed Forces, of his public promise to release the preliminary findings into the attack on JoyNews reporter Carlos Caloni and his cameraman by a soldier along the Sprinters route. This report is long overdue, and its release is necessary to restore public confidence that the military does not condone attacks on journalists. And I take it once again. This report is long overdue, and its release is necessary to restore public confidence that the military does not condone attacks on journalists. The GJA insists that this promise must be honored without further delay. For failure to do so will cast doubt on the military's commitment to transparency and accountability in matters of press freedom. We are yet to hear from government after the President, through the Minister of State in charge of government communication, directed the Minister for Defense and National Security Coordinator to investigate the incident involving the attack and arrest of Carlos and his cameraman and ensure the appropriate punishment is imposed. The delay comes to confirm our earlier fear and position that the President's directive was not enough, even though we commended the President for his swift response to the incident. We were thinking timeline should have been given, but that was not done. And here we find ourselves.
Well, away from that, the NPP is pushing back against fresh polls by Global Info Analytics that places the NDC's candidate ahead in the Akwatia by-election. The governing party insists the findings are, the opposition party insists the findings are misleading, arguing that grassroots support remains firmly behind their candidate. That's their candidate, Bernard Bedu. This comes amid suggestions that demands for development reshaping voter sentiment and that the sympathy vote alone may not decide the outcome. We'll hear from the NPP shortly, but first, to help us unpack the survey, what they mean for Akwatia and beyond, Dr. Eugene Kumi Ahin is a senior research analyst at Global Info Analytics.
If everything goes right, Asumedu, who is the MPP candidate, versus the Bedu, who is the NDC candidate, we have what we call the likely voters model. The likely voters model, we are putting all those involved in the sample size into consideration. If that is what happens, it means Asumedu is going to be down by 42%, and Bernard Bedu is going to have 47%, telling us that Bernard, who is the NDC candidate, is going to win the election at the end of the day. Now, when we come to what we call the committed voters model, that is those who are the diehard going to vote. Those, whether rain or shine, they are saying they are going to vote for both the MPP and the NDC. They are telling us that Bernard B. Bedu is going to have 53% of the total votes, and Solomon K. Asumedu is going to have 47%. Now, we looked at certain things, that is what we call the dynamics, which tells us who is going to win at the end of the day. If we look at Asumedu and Bedu, we can see that people are more interested in the Bedu guy than Asumedu. One reason is because of development.
Okay.
What they were saying was they can see that the government in power is the NDC. So if they vote for Asumedu, who is the MPP guy, they are still going to lack development. But in case they go for Bedu, I think his father is the head of the nation. So when he goes for development, automatically it will be delivered.
Meanwhile, the NPP says the results from the poll are far from reality. Jeff Koneduado is the NPP Eastern Regional Chairman.
Well, I've read that, but I always say that these are opinion polls that Well, I've read that, but I always say that these are opinion polls that done, and I don't agree to that. I disagree with that poll. Being on the ground for some time now here in the constituency, I have a different opinion, and I believe that at the end of the day, the NPP candidate Solomon Kwame Asumedu will carry the day. That is an empirical evidence that I have seen on the ground.
Well, the incoming president of the Pan-African Psychological Union and former president of the Ghana Psychology Association, Dr. Ajman Bedu Collins, is warning that poor parenting and lack of resources of wellness and counseling centers on university campuses are fueling a dangerous rise in drug abuse among tertiary students. His warning follows a government commission survey reviewed by the Minister of Youth Development, George Opare Addo, indicating shocking numbers. Now, 12% of tertiary students abuse cocaine, 11% use heroin, while 59% consume weed edibles. He reviewed these numbers during the JoyNews National Dialogue on Opioid Abuse. Before we listen to Dr. Collins Ajman Bedu, here is a report from the dialogue.
59% of our respondents in these tertiary institutions are on one, we call it weed edibles, 59%.
Weed edibles. 15, more than half of them.
More than half. And then the scary part is the shisha and hookah. And ordinary shisha should not have been here, but I understand now they mix some substance with the shisha and hookahs that are in our various drinking spots and bars. That is 49%.
Wow, almost half.
Yes. Prescription drugs, 41%. That is where and these are tertiary institutions.
Alarming figures from Ghana's tertiary institutions are shining a light on the country's deepening opioid crisis. Minister of Youth Development and Employment, George Opare Addo, says 59% of students are using opioids, with 12% abusing cocaine and 11% abusing heroin, warning that this is no longer just a government fight, but a national battle.
59% of our respondents in these tertiary institutions are on one, we call it weed edibles, 59%.
Weed edibles. 15, more than half of them.
More than half. And then the scary part is the shisha and hookah. And ordinary shisha should not have been here. But I understand now they mix some substance with the shisha and hookahs that are in our various drinking spots and bars. That is 49%.
From government to regulatory, law enforcement and health experts, the urgency of the crisis is being echoed. The Food and Drugs Authority says opioids have legitimate medical use, but stresses that diversion into abuse is the real danger.
Traditionally, in the clinical setting, when clinicians prescribe these opioids for you, it is given to you for a period, for a condition. No clinician, because of the psychoactive nature of the products, will put you on opioids on long-term basis. It is normally on short-term, except for exceptional circumstances.
For the police, weak laws make the fight even harder. Chief Superintendent Dr. Revoking says bailable possession frustrates enforcement and gives transnational syndicates room to operate.
With certain cases, with certain situations, we don't want to be seen as heavy-handed. We want the society to recognize that, yes, we always say police is your friend. So in the management of these things, we don't want a situation where we come in hard and heavy. We have seen in the past that these have not necessarily helped, because it just makes people go very much underground. So we have to take into consideration the human rights of people. So I wouldn't say the bail situation would significantly change what is happening. But definitely, as I said, the collaborative aspect would go a long way.
Health experts warn the dangers go far beyond policing. Dr. Eugene Dodoi of the Mental Health Authority explains that prolonged use of opioids alters the brain and abrupt withdrawal can even be deadly.
Unfortunately, very unfortunately, the mind is saying that if you take drugs of abuse, tomorrow it will demand more. Because what you took today will not give you the same high tomorrow. So with time, you need more. And when you start using it for a long time, that's what we call tolerance. When you start using it for a long time, you can't stop. When you stop, you fall sick. What we call withdrawal syndrome. And that for opioid can kill you. If you stop at once, yes, that can kill you.
For the Narcotics Control Authority, prevention must walk hand in hand with treatment. Kamal Dean Awudu insists schools and families must be at the heart of Ghana's response.
Remember, community mobilization and participation is very, very important when it comes to, substance abuse interventions. And recently, I did that with a community called Sabonzongo, a community just close to Abuzukai. And I did that with the police visibility unit and then other stakeholders. And these communities, the community themselves did a research, identified the malleable risk factors in the community, and then they presented the findings to us. So based on that, it made it very, very easy for us to proffer mechanisms to be able to do it.
Researchers warn that Ghana missed a crucial window to act. Dr. Kwame Esiedusapon says the crisis is worsening in mining areas with substances like Wunim Red spreading fast.
The irony is it is more used in the Galamsey centers. And I asked you to check with my friend and your colleague Rastus, and you got confirmation that that was what was happening.
From government campaign and regulatory vigilance to treatment and rehabilitation, the JoyNews National Dialogue makes one thing clear. Ghana's opioid crisis demands a united response because behind the statistics are human lives. For JoyNews, Seyram Abla D'Souza.
Well, away from that, a senior lecturer at the Simon Diodong Dombo University of Business and Integrated Development Studies is calling on government to retool the Lands Commission to enable it to deliver on its mandate more effectively. Dr. Bachelet Nara warns that the Commission's lack of adequate equipment is driving up land registration costs, discouraging landowners from registering their properties and fueling widespread land dispute. He made the call at a training workshop for key stakeholders at the University in Wa. JoyNews' Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafi Salam has more.
The training workshop is a collaboration between Dr. Bachelet Nara of the Lumba University of Business and Integrated Development Studies, SDDUBEX, and Professor Monica Langoboni of the University of Twente in the Netherlands. While the University of Twente in the Netherlands offers land administration, the SDDUBEX offers land management, aiming to help in the management and administration of lands in Ghana. The workshop brought together landlords from various communities within the one municipality, women groups, students, and other stakeholders regarding land issues. Dr. Bachelet Nara explained the rationale behind the project between the two universities.
This work package in this collaboration aims to undertake a series of activities that seek to facilitate the efforts of Ghana to advance its development, partly through strengthening customary land rights and local landholders, particularly of indigenous land owners. This will be done in collaboration with institutions who champion development, using land as a main resource.
He urged the government to retool the Land Commission to enable it to work effectively.
Yes, in our field work, we have come across situations where the landowners have claimed, let me say claim, they have claimed that the current state of affairs in the management and administration of land is not fair to them, it's injurious to them. To the extent that in one or two communities they have mentioned that the state land officials, some of them own lands more than the landowners. And the reason is this. One member explained that many times when they come to do the demarcation of their lands, they require them to pay some amount of money. They immediately don't have the money to pay. So they enter into a negotiation where they indicate that they will allow them, you know, they will do the demarcation and then they pay not in cash but in kind, using some of the parcels of land. The issue is when we asked about why this is happening from the land officials, they said the equipment for the demarcation of the lands are not available. So they, individuals within the state organizations, acquire their own equipment and go to do the mapping for the people. I am by this calling on the government to actually retool the structure of the Lands Commission, the workings of the Lands Commission, in such a way that the Commission should not be allowed to operate in a situation without equipment.
A participant from the West Central Coast of Land Secretariat, Big Osman, also urged the government to reduce land registration fees to allow for easy documentation of lands to avoid conflicts.
The third issue that we face is expensive documentation, expensive fees that Land Commission charges. That one is discouraging a lot of landlords to document their lands, and this brings about conflicts. It should be moderate so that prospective developers or landowners will not fear going to the Lands Commission to document their plots of land or their land.
The Pro-Vice Chancellor of SDDUBEX, Professor Isaac Osman Kanton, who chaired the function, noted the importance of land issues to development.
We all know the challenges that we have when it comes to land management and administration. Well, particularly as the countries strive to develop, land is a key factor in that effort.
Various presentations were made both physical and by Zoom. Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
Well, health advocates are urging financial support to sustain immunization against life-threatening infectious diseases. The call was made at a workshop by Hope for Future Generations in partnership with the Global Health Advocacy Incubator and Gavi. Ghana's immunization drive currently relies on donor funding, which ends in 2028. The HFFG project coordinator, Savannah Morgan, warned this could disrupt programs and urged the government to build local vaccine production to cut donor dependence. The GHIA country coordinator, Stephen Atasige, also pushed for sustainable financing in the 2026 national budget.
This year, the government has paid up all of its co-financing obligation, which is exciting. I think this is a very vast improvement compared to previous years. Previous years, government have made payments as well, but then we believe that this year has come more timely compared to, for instance, last year, where we paid almost towards the end of the year. This time around, government has been able to pay over, about $24.6 million as co-financing and traditional vaccines before even the end of the third quarter, which is very encouraging. However, to sustain this, we need to ensure that the government is prioritizing the budgets for immunization even in the coming year.
Principal planner at the Finance Ministry, Kweku Safu Mensah, assured innovative measures, including public-private partnerships to close the funding gap, were being explored.
Immunization is one of the very key areas that we can't overlook, and that is why the government is undertaking efforts to look at other alternative ways domestically that can fill in the gap for the funding into vaccination. We are all aware of the recent rollout of USAID, and because of that, the Ministry of Health in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance is still looking at other innovative ways, as I said, including private-public partnerships.
We'll take a quick break here. We will return with more stories. Please do stay. Welcome back from the break. Now, they are denied any opportunity to work and earn an income because of their diminutive nature. Their closest brush with dignity comes when they are referred to as children in their daily encounters with able-bodied persons. That is the everyday reality of little people living in many parts of Ghana. Speaking at the University of Ghana's collaborative on climate resilience and sustainability high-level breakfast with the disability community, founder of the Ghana Association of Persons with Little Stature, Sophia Boakye Achampon, is demanding an end to the stereotyping and discrimination against the group. Anne Dassey has more in this report.
People with disabilities face daily struggles of all kinds. The situation becomes even more difficult when they are not recognized as disabled, despite the reality being clear and undeniable. This is exactly the situation of a particular group known as little people. Mrs. Sophia Boakye Achampon, founder of the Ghana Association of Persons with Little Stature, told JoyNews that many members of her communities are often denied job opportunities because of their condition, even though some are fully capable and, in her view, could perform even better than others.
They see us and they ask us, but you can walk, you can see, you can talk. Why do you call yourself a disability? And then, that notwithstanding, it may be true what you are saying, but it goes beyond that. Most of the little persons that I have come into contact with are qualified to work in formal offices. But anytime they put in the application, it is rejected because of their height, because of lack of height. So I'm begging the public and the private sectors that the people or the little persons are equally good when it comes to working in their firms. You understand? I mean, they are equally good. So I can even say, without fear or favor, that some are even better. Please forgive me, but that is the truth.
With emotion, she appealed to both the private and public sectors to review their employment criteria and create opportunities for persons with disabilities in the corporate world.
So I'm begging the public and the private sector, please employ them. Because at the end of the day, most of them are found wanting. And unfortunately, they do not even have help to say they are going to rely on that. So please, when they come to you with their qualifications, which are good or which goes with what you are seeking for, kindly accept them in your workplaces.
Efia, a visually impaired young graduate of the University of Ghana, shared her experience with Joy News. She recently completed her internship with the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and dreams of empowering women to invest in agriculture. Despite her challenges, she remains determined to succeed and contribute to national growth.
I'm just done with a 6 months internship with the Springboard Roadshow Foundation. I had a change of misconception when I worked with the Springboard Roadshow Foundation. The misconception was that people who are farmers and
the hope is for every person, regardless of physical condition, to find space, opportunity, and dignity in Ghana's future. And Das's reports read to you.
Also, a country's economy will be quite better if their agriculture is taken seriously. So I want to empower women to take life seriously, put their life into their own hands, work hard, and make a positive impact in the society.
In response to these concerns, the University of Ghana has launched a project to improve accessibility on campus while offering scholarships to students with disabilities, ensuring that higher education is truly within reach for all, regardless of physical limitations.
At the top of that, we are providing fellowships or scholarships to young people to do masters or PhD or postdoctoral training at the University of Ghana in any discipline, but that has a component of climate change, sustainability, resilience in the research project that they will do or in the content of the program. So that means that basically you can enroll in any program at all, but you have to do a project that is related to climate and sustainability.
The hope is for every person, regardless of physical condition, to find space, opportunity, and dignity in Ghana's future. And Das's reports read to you.
Head of Corporate Communications at Ghana Gas, Richard Kirk-Mensah, has assured Ghanaians that the Akwatia gas processing plant is back to full operation, adding that there is no cause for alarm. He noted that the plant is ready to produce gas for the country. Mr. Mensah further revealed that the government is set to begin work on a second processing plant, which will help provide relatively cheap electricity for Ghanaians. His remarks followed the successful completion of maintenance works at the Akwatia plant, which was finished ahead of schedule.
I want to categorically state to all Ghanaians and all relevant stakeholders that Ghana Gas Processing Plant is back on stream. We are processing and we are safe. We are going to produce for electricity consumption and industrial growth. There's no cause for alarm. The plant is safe. Everything is on course. The current administration, led by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, is very much committed to start the second processing plant. You know, this project is long overdue. Unfortunately, it didn't materialize. And the President and the Minister of Energy are very much committed. There was a technical committee to review whatever works that done previously, and they have finished their report and they have submitted to Cabinet. If not for the tragedy that befell us as a country, I think by now we would have known the timelines. So within the shortest possible time, I think when Cabinet meets, they will give us the timelines for the commencement of the second processing plant. And I know a lot of Ghanaians are waiting impatiently for this project because it's going to give us jobs, it's going to give us relatively cheaper electricity, and it's going to open door for industrial growth.
The Independence Square in Accra has today turned into a sea of mourners and music lovers as thousands gather for the one-week observance of High Life legend Daddy Lumba. The event has become both a moment of reflection and a celebration of his timeless songs and unmatched influence on Ghana's music scene. Here is more.
Thousands of fans, family and industry stakeholders are from the Black Star Square in Accra to mark the one-week observance of the passing of legendary High Life musician Charles Kojo-Fosu, popularly known as Daddy Lumba. The atmosphere is both solemn and celebratory, filled with music and reflections, as mourners recount his profound impact on Ghana's cultural and musical heritage. Rising to prominence in the 1980s, Daddy Lumba became one of the most iconic voices in Ghana's high life scene. With over 30 albums and countless hit songs, he cemented his reputation as a musical genius whose work transcended generations. Classics like Ferries Ababrese, Aben Waha, and Yin Tiobia became national anthems, blending storytelling and melody in a way few could match. Beyond his music, Daddy Lumba embodied resilience, overcoming personal and professional struggles to remain relevant for more than 3 decades. His unique style, charisma, and lyrical depth secured his place as one of Ghana's greatest entertainers. Today's observation
All right, and that's how we wrap up the bulletin for you. There's more news on myjoyonline.com, but the 1 week is still underway at the Independence Square. Do pass by and be part of the celebration. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace.